Attention, members of the Resistance. We're going to talk about episode 3 of Man in the High Castle. We're going to take the box. We're going to put everything in the box and throw that box aside. And more. Stay tuned.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
What's up, and welcome to the Man in the High Castle after show. We're talking about episode 3, The Box. Welcome to we're part of the Resistance. Yes,
that's right.
Yes. So, and you are too. You're watching, listening. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Kari Lane. I'm joined by my full panel this week. Yay!
That's right.
Welcome our additional panelists.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. My name is Blankenship.
And I am Rachel Goodman, and I am very happy to be here as well and discuss not only Man in the High Castle, but the Radio Resistance.
Yes. So what we're also going to talk about, we're going to break down the episode, and then we also have news, and then we also have our special segment where we talk about what's really real within the show. All right. Belle, since first up for this week, what did you think of episode 3, The Box?
Wow, it was so good. I mean, there's constantly the show, you're questioning every single character, what their motives are, if they're going to turn, if they're going to stay. And I do think the opening was fantastic, where you have Helen, is like going back to the Reich. So kind of the question is, and one thing I kind of noticed is every time she has her hair up, like in a bun, I feel like she's either putting on some kind of front or she's having to make some kind of sacrifice. And I really feel like I think she's scheming something, because I feel like Hank would have been a little more, like, don't go if he did think she was going to stay.
Fair.
What do you think?
Rachel, what do you think?
I'm very excited to discuss episode 3. I think one of my favorite scenes we're going to save for 4, but in this episode, I especially loved what they were doing with the alternate reality, especially with Juliana, and especially a little bit more context we got on alternate John Smith, R.I.P.
Right. I almost feel bad for him, kind of. It's
know.
complicated.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's love-hate.
So, as you said, Belle, we start with Helen coming into in Montana, and I was like, oh, she's going back. No.
I know.
But it's for her daughters, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I kind of was like, more power to her, of like, no, I'm sorry, I got to survive myself.
Yeah.
But she couldn't leave them behind after Jennifer's phone call. Like, I did
So sad.
My big thing is, and we kind of get to this a little bit later, where she tells Jennifer, I'm gonna get you out of here eventually, but just eventually, wait for it. I will help you.
Yeah.
My thing is, I think that she has realized that she is not going to be much help to, number one, her daughters, but number one, what she is starting to realize is her true cause, which is the way that she knew America was before this, and the way that she knew the world was before this. And so I think that for Helen, it's a matter of knowing that she needs to go in and, one, protect her family, but two, that she's going to have the best chance of starting some kind of revolution, but in a different kind of way without causing a ruckus.
Yeah.
I think that she's going to try to make changes, but she knows that she needs to make silent changes from within the system.
Oh, I like it.
That's a good theory, yeah.
I don't think, knowing what she knows, she could really sit by and let it happen.
Right.
Exactly.
I think she's like, which we see towards the end of episode 2,
Yes.
which we'll talk about in another episode, so check that one out.
It's coming.
I don't think she's going to she cannot stand on the sidelines and do nothing.
And the thing with Helen and John, both of them, is that they, unlike the children, they come from a world where they know better. They know what things were like before. And so I feel like now Helen pushed all of that away for a long time, and she can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Because she is a good person.
No.
And so she just can't be what the Reich wants her to be.
I just wonder if, like, she's going to go, like, my big thing, because Amy seems so comfortable in the Reich. She loves it. She eats it up, and I'm not a huge fan, but I'm wondering if, there's maybe if Helen will either try to kind of get Jennifer out of there, just because Jennifer is, she's kind of a threat because she keeps doing all, playing the music that's not legal, or if, Helen is just going to kind of silently kind of have her own way of resisting and sticking around. So, because I don't even know if John would allow her to just take Jennifer or not. I don't know. What do you think?
I was under the impression the way that Himmler was treating the children, that they were grooming them because they believed in the children as being part of the Nazi regime.
They're part of the future.
Yeah.
But did not especially care for the parents anymore.
Yeah.
So I got the impression that they were going to take them away. Himmler doesn't know what Jennifer has done yet in terms of the music or the influence, so they're probably going to try and take them in and basically resituate them into a different living situation.
I think Helen's still going to be involved because she has, as you said, the warned Jennifer. She will, you know, like, you can't do this, but I will help you. If one of those, be patient. There has to be the right time and place. And then, yes, we learn the Fuhrer is going to be coming to dinner. You know, it's interesting, and we know later it doesn't go well, but poor Helen, she thinks, oh, Marguerite, I like her, and I want to, it makes it sound like she likes her. But that doesn't go as planned, as we learn later. But what do you all think of that? Of like, oh, yes, John, no, I'm staying. I'm going to hang out. I'm going to be part of this. It'll be fine.
I loved the line about, John, you need an ally more than you realize. You may not have me as your wife anymore, but you need help. And I think that's part of it, is that John Smith might not even realize just how far he has fallen.
They're going to have a, quote, frank conversation. I like the, hey, R.I.P. Frank, too. I was like, that was another character. Also, I like that they finally talked about their relationship, and they're like, well, why pretend that, like, our marriage, and him, fair enough, too, going, hey, you're not the only one. Because they did used to, they were, like, my team, and I was excited for them, and then he is being dumb. And yes, he will be the ally. And what matters is their children. So, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm also wondering if, well, one thing that I do kind of like in both universes is, although John omits so much, they do kind of, because remember, I don't know, might have been episode 1 or 2 where in the alt world, Helen's like, oh yeah, you know, we have this kind of pact that we never, or like we always tell the truth to each other. And even in this world, although it's a little more tense, you know, even when John confronts her and just says, all right, like, let's get it all out there. And, you know, then she makes the ally comment. I do kind of like that parallel between both worlds. So it is something that's still important to both of them. So yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting theme that came up.
We will not lie, which I think is the only reason they could continue to work together too, after all of this. Was there anything else with Helen that stood out to you?
I have things to say about John.
Okay, we're all set. We'll use our alt John to transition to Juliana and alt John. So we have our Juliana is what kind of bridges us to our alt John. She has this book, The Wei Chi, of Before Completion, and learns that Thomas wants to join the Marines, go fight the Reds, and she's kind of like, are you really sure this is what you should be doing? And everyone thinks something is worth dying and killing for, which semi-jumping ahead, but it helps with the transition, which cuts to the BCR, which I like that. Things are worth fighting and killing for. BCR is what they're doing is worth it. But that leads us later to our conversation with Juliana and alt John, where she says, like, hey, those things you can't tell them, you should, because then if Thomas actually knew what it's like, then it won't be this glorified idea to him. What do you think of that conversation with Juliana and John?
What stood out to me, and this is kind of what I wanted to say about John, is that when she asked him, you know, hey, like, what would you tell a guy who believes he's all powerful? John's answer was, it didn't, for me, if I had stayed in that line of work, it just would have continually and progressively gotten to my head. And it just reminded me of this book I had read called Ordinary Men by Christopher Browning. And it's this idea that good people can go off and fight, and regular people can turn into monsters. And it's not to say that they are bad people. It's just that their environments condition them to turn into this. And that it doesn't go from A to Z instantly. It's a progression of steps. And so with John, I think that was the key that Juliana needed to hear, is that he is still a good guy deep down. I think she still obviously has the goal to go and kill him because she feels like that's what's not completed yet. But I feel like that's what her resolution is going to be at some point, is that that's what's finally going to click, is it's all going to come back to what Alt John told her.
I like it, yeah. Because then we see how she gets to that point. She meditates again, sees Takomi, sort of, who turns into John, and then that's how she meets him and everything. Yeah. And then, yes, how do you beat someone who has that much power in the fact that he's just a man?
And
I love that line.
I love that Alt John pointed that out.
Like, no, it's just a human being. It's, you know, you think they have power. But, you know, if you're alone in a room with somebody, they're just a person.
Right.
You know, so the question is how close can she get to him at this point?
And I do wonder, especially in the alt world, if Thomas is going to go through with the fighting. And I feel like if he does, I feel like he might die. So kind of, you know, in reflecting, you know, what already happened to him in Nazi world. So I will be interested to kind of, you know, to see if he does end up going through with it, or, you know, how that kind of storyline plays out for sure, too.
You made me write down a prediction, which stay tuned for our predictions. I know this is a binge show, so please, no spoilers. Yes. We're only covering one at a time. Thank you for your patience with that. And speaking of that, for everybody watching us live, thank you so much for watching us live. And if you're watching later, still awesome. Please comment down below your thoughts on the episode. And if you are just joining us on this one, we have coverage of episodes 1 and 2, and then we'll be going through all of them, so it's awesome. Right. If you're listening, thumbs up on the YouTube, and they're listening to iTunes. Yes, 5 stars. So then, yes, poor John, John. The assassin tries to kill Juliana. I liked, and a weird thing, but it was a small detail. I like that even though she had the plastic bag, she tried to poke out the area where her mouth was. Because it makes sense, and I'm glad that they addressed that. Like, she's attempting to survive.
And here's the thing, too, is that the Juliana Crane from this world, obviously would not have known how to do that.
Oh, no,
she would not have known how to load a gun to see if they were to check it. And so she is she's a survivalist.
Oh, yes.
So that's the whole thing, is that I wasn't worried for her. I thought she was going to get out of it. I do feel bad for John.
Yeah. At least he kind of died quick, and he does seem like a good man, that he's like, no, go. Like, don't let his sacrifice be in vain.
And then Campbell's reaction when he saw John,
he's like,
like horrified. I really
then you gotta tell your boss later, be like,
P.S.
That conversation was so funny. Anyway,
so funny.
So John stops him. He's killed, and I immediately, which we do know later, I was like, oh, John can cross now.
Right.
So immediately was like, that can happen.
Yep. This goes into prediction territory, but we know it, so I'm just gonna say my notes here. I literally said, she's leaving, going to get followed. Yep. And then ... in all caps. Guess who's coming to town? John 2.0.
Nice. I'm like, not getting ahead of ourselves, but exactly my notes. So I wrote, John can cross now. We're good. Because then it's like, oh, we knew exactly that was how it was going to go down, and like, okay, I know I said no spoilers, but we did watch 1 and 2. But, you know. So, yes, I do. That kind of wraps up Juliana on the run. And I was like, that's where we leave her, because that's later. Yes, that's the next bit. All right, the only other thing with Juliana that I did like, we get to see a little bit more of Russ, and I think I trust my hair more now.
Yeah, me too.
I was a little skeptical.
Yeah, for me, I feel like Russ just seems like a good guy, but he's really just, there's no depth really to him. In my opinion, I just feel like he's kind of, you know, like I feel like he's there just to serve a purpose. Like, you know, he kind of gives her the gun, which she needs for survival. So I feel like he's literally just there for kind of just to kind of help her along the way. So
he's kind of like the red shirt. We all know he's probably going to die, but he is kind of there to move the plot along.
Yeah. Like we need him. If we didn't have him, then there would be certain things missing that Juliana couldn't do. So,
well, I like that he helps her and trusts her and goes, I like you, mysteries and all. And he's like, okay. And we also learned like that's how the Juliana is okay, is she didn't die in that car accident the way she did in this world. So I'm like, oh, interesting. All right. Anything else with Juliana and John, Helen, moving on to the West Coast?
So. Yeah.
All right. Now we're taking a plane going over the West Coast, San Francisco. We get Kido with General Yamori, and Kido is still looking into things. I knew it. I'm like, no, it's been framed. We don't know exactly what it is just yet.
Yeah. And it was so obvious that Yamori wanted to just brush it under the rug, because they were involved.
Oh yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, you're like, really? But go
Right.
This is where, okay, Kido's a complicated character.
Yeah.
I think this is where we kind of are rooting for him because he is
Yes.
trying to get to the truth regardless of what side that truth is on.
Yes.
You know, like
Yeah.
he's... In this moment, he's not having malicious intent.
Right.
Yeah.
Per se.
Right.
So, with Kido, luckily this is one of those that you go, does fate is fate for real, or does something intervene on his behalf? Because we learn a sequence of events
Yeah.
makes it so he doesn't die. What did you think of that? Because we learn, so his son, poor Toru, man,
Can I say
That was
something?
so sad.
While
Yeah.
we're talking about Toru, every time we hear his PTSD acting up, for lack of a better terminology there, every time we hear it, I almost hear, like, you know when Juliana travels through dimensions? It almost sounds the same way with him. And so I'm suspecting, like, this is kind of prediction, but I'm almost suspecting that there's something more involved there than what we're hearing. But it's very heartbreaking to watch him.
Yeah, I think for the problem with Kido, because he is one of those you love and you hate at every single second. But for him, I think the problem is he always puts duty over conscience. And I think, obviously, that's why he is now disowned his son. And I'm just wondering, especially if, his suspicions are true and, Yamori did end up, killing Tagomi. What is it going to take for him to kind of put his duty aside and really just do what's right? And now that, if that does happen, would he accept his son again? That whole thing is it's tough. I don't.
My thing is, his son missed an interview, missed, and then on top of that, killed a Yakuza boss. But what did
an
it?
employee.
Yeah, but like
someone who works with the Yakuza. It's not a good thing.
But what really did it? It wasn't either of these things. Kido was willing to kind of brush those things under the rug.
Yes.
It was only when Toru said, "You were never there for my family."
Yep.
That is when Kido snapped and pushed him through the glass.
Yep.
That one remark.
Yep.
It's like he knows. It's kind of like he just doesn't want to admit it, and so he just kind of, So he's really just. I think that's why he just kind of his excuse for everything is just duty, and if I feel like. Again, like duty triumphs over everything else. So.
Where is that duty placed? Because, as Toru says, what about the duty to your family? So that is I like that. I did like that Toru and Kido had the moment though where Toru was able to open up about his experiences, his memories, and essentially, it's one of those. Pretty sure they're not calling it PTSD because they're like, no, you're a war hero. It's great. It's fine. Or just put that, push it aside. And he said that we are puppets, and he's like. Toru says we're puppets and that we don't really have essentially a free will. And that's with you're not my son, which
right.
I think he's going to regret it later.
I do too.
But Kido's going to regret
sad.
it. But it's still technically a little bit in line with the current Japanese aesthetic in terms of you are more about the community and less about the self. And it's one of those extremes are bad in terms of like here we'd be far more about the individual and they're far more about the community. And in both of those extremes, you could have negative consequences. So it needs to be kind of that healthy
he just doesn't have a good balance. So you're right. He may have duty to his job. That is fantastic. But he cannot balance his duty to any other aspect of his life. So, I think it's going to have to take him just sacrificing some kind of duty to do the right thing. And I really, really hope that by the end of the show, we end up loving Kido, like once and for all. I don't know.
He's the only one, like, certain characters, even John Smith, I feel like he has more likely... To me, he will more likely go through that arc of, okay, we can get behind this man, more likely than Kido. I feel like Kido's going to take a darker turn.
Okay.
Oh,
interesting.
Okay. We'll hold on that.
Yeah.
So we do get Kido. He finds out that the resistance is going down. So, I mean, that's the last bit of it where Ijima comes to him and says, hey, here's that report. Here's the information. Then Kido pieces together. Wait. The resistance are the caterers, puts it together. So pause on that because now we'll talk about the resistance.
Yay.
But was there anything else on Kido?
No, just
in this one.
Well, Ijima, just in the fact that Yeah, because I don't think that they
Oh, so
had...
that's the next one.
Yeah. So it was just
Yep.
the sketch. Okay.
Binge shows, I tell you. All right, so speaking of the Resistance, we get to Wyatt, Kent, and Pablo. Of them, that was the title of the episode. It goes in the box, which Dr. Sleep also deals with that, put that in the box. Yes. Okay. So it's an interesting idea of when you are dealing with something that is so horrific, such as you're essentially going to be murdering people, even if you hate those people, even though those people are your oppressors, you're still murdering a human being. But, as Wyatt says, you know what, when we're doing situations like this, I have a box, this day goes in the box, go away. But then one of the gentlemen in the back who doesn't live is like, what happens when that box gets full? And you're like, oh. And he's like, get another box.
Yeah. Just keep building.
Yes. So I felt so tense this entire auction bit. What about you both?
Yeah. It's just like, I feel like we all knew it was not going to be seamless. And of course it wasn't. But I just love Belle, not only because she shares my name, but she is a badass. And and I don't know if you're gonna say anything about this in your special segment, but I loved the poem.
Yes.
Okay, so you'll bring that up.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a fantastic kind of background that she did.
If We Must Die by Claude McKay.
Yes.
I actually have it up. It's really short, so during the segment I'll read about it.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I was going to say that kind of, with Wyatt and them, kind of leads us into the next moment where we kind of, after Juliana saying what is worth dying and killing for, that cuts right to the BCR and Belle and her starting that speech, If We Must Die, which is like the best kind of little pep talk thing.
Really was.
I mean, that sounds like it's minimizing, but not really. But in terms of, it's just a good thing to tell everybody who's going into this battle. Yeah. Because you can't go in with doubts. That's going to get you killed. And it's too bad that the other people didn't get their powwow of like, hey, let's confer before we go in and, boost the morale.
I knew it was not going to go over well.
Yeah.
I was most worried for Robert. Because I assumed he was going to get caught in the crossfire.
Childan?
Yes.
Or
he's the other weird one I'm rooting for. I say weird just because he's kind of on the back guys. Which we'll talk about him.
Kind of. I feel like he goes wherever is going to save his skin.
He's mercurial, which is our vocab word in the next episode.
I think with Robert, the thing with Robert, I feel like he might...
Wait, pause on Robert.
Okay. We'll go back to...
Because we're almost at him, because he's great
okay.
when we see him later.
Yes, okay.
But with Belle and them, the butcher, and... Kido's not there. It's when they're knowing it or figuring out that Kido's not there and they still go through. Because all things considered, he's local. That it's the other people that need to die more specifically.
Like really General Masuda is the dude who they needed to get without a shadow of a doubt. Like that was the dude.
And then the Shimura and Nagasaki. So we get those. Yeah. And them that getting ready, tasting the food, but it's fine. Food's not the problem.
Right.
Oh, you're like, no, it is not in the food.
And that's the second time they addressed that too.
Yeah.
That was I think it was episode 2. Yes. Same situation. Taste it. We're not eating it until you do.
Yeah.
Like,
and
nope, it's fine.
Just the attitude from Wade, like fine.
It's like, okay. It's like, really? That's all you're
He made it with attitude.
And that auction, man, how cool. Why? So they go in. Should they abort or not? I like that Belle stuck around. Mad props to her for sticking around.
Me too. That's the thing. That's what I love about her is that, like, when she has her mindset on something, she will see it to completion. Even though, like, everyone else was like, we gotta get out of here. Like, and the fact, she kills the general once and for all. It's just,
that was great.
She's so awesome.
That was
so great.
Probably my favorite shot of between the 2 episodes that we watched this week. Yeah.
And I like, because it shows how dedicated she is, because she knows if they only kind of half-ass this, it'll be essentially a waste of their time if they only get a little bit. It's like they need to finish the job, even if it's going south.
And that's the whole thing, as it goes back to the poem, If We Must Die. She doesn't care. I mean, she does care if she lives or dies, but she's not banking on the fact that she's going to survive anything. Yeah. And so she knows, I came here to do this. And it isn't just for me. It's for going back to community. It is for the future of people who they don't want people to have to suffer and deal with this anymore.
I wonder if we're going to get any more of her backstory, because she is just like, she is so great with military tactics. And I mean, she just seems like a natural. And I wonder if this really just is a result of her experience, like of oppression, or if she does have any kind of, or like her parents were,
I don't think we've seen the last of her.
I don't think so either. Yeah, I'm excited to keep following her.
So then that leads us to the super kind of awesome, like, oh no moment with Wyatt and Jeremy coming in through the auction and killing a whole lot of people. And our poor other soldiers who die, and the destruction at the auction. And yes, poor Childan looking for his Yukiko. And I was like, oh no.
And we don't know.
We do not know.
Yeah.
We didn't see her body. There was
That's
somebody on the
true.
ground that had a similar-ish dress, but I don't think that was supposed to be her, because if it was, I think they would have shown her face.
Yeah.
So, which he leads us to the Resistance. They get back. They've lost some, but not as many as they thought they could have lost. I mean, on the Wyatt side, they lost more soldiers, but the BCR, not really, all things considered.
And it was interesting, the dynamics between the two groups, how it was, I mean, they were arguing over who sacrificed more, essentially. And like, Wyatt's like, why don't you give me the guns? You offered them to me. What's up with that?
Well, we have to finish the job for you. And you're like, dude, come on. They lost people. They did what they had to do.
Yeah.
Which leads us then to, Childan in the car. And I was like, oh, no.
Well, see,
I was like, the wrong car to get into, buddy.
I think that, what I was saying about Childan, I feel like, honestly, he might be one of the most human people in the show, because really, I feel like he is loyal to everyone and no one. And to me, I think he really is, he's just trying to survive. And I think the majority of us, I mean, obviously, we have these saviors like Juliana and Belle and these really big characters, but I would say the norm is not those guys. It's going to be the Childans that are literally going to do whatever it takes just so that they can make it, So that's why I love Childan, because I'm like, he's a very human aspect of the show.
He's a smart human of, no, I am valuable to you. Do not kill me. I have importance.
Absolutely.
Because then they think like, okay, we're going to kill you, but he makes a very good point that I actually hadn't thought of either. He says, you're killing the wrong people. They're part of the withdrawal. And then, of course, the BCR is like, the what?
Excuse me.
No! Because how would they know? How would the people on the ground know about the royalty of what their planning is and the Crown Princess's decisions? And so, of course, Childan's like, I'm useful. Please, can I speak to the group?
I mean, I knew he was going to have a comeback, and I knew he was going to get out of it. I knew they weren't going to just kill him, because he is very clever.
Yes.
He will always talk himself out of a situation.
Very good word for him.
Yeah.
Skittish, but clever.
And speaking is probably his most, his strongest skill.
Yeah. He's good at talking to people and eavesdropping.
Yeah.
Because as he said, he's like, that is my job. I know information, and everybody says something. And they probably overlook him, too, so that people probably say things around him that maybe don't think he's of consequence.
Yeah.
But, nope, turns out it's important. But good thing he has met the Crown Princess, because then he goes, I'll write a letter to her and everything. And he says, no, he'll help the Resistance. I wonder if he would, I guess if he thinks the Resistance and BCR is going to make a difference, he would join their side. Because it definitely seemed like he was joining the Japanese side when that was part of his survival, which we have that reveal with Kiko. Where he's like, I was living like eating rats, and now I live comfortably because of sucking up to the Japanese, essentially.
Yeah.
But now it's like, oh, well, if you guys are doing, he's going to go with whatever side's doing better.
That is true, because we've seen it before, even with like little moments with Frank and Ed. I think even that might have been the last season where they kind of put the banner over, like, I don't know what tower it was in San Francisco, but and he didn't want to, but then he kind of caved and just said, all right, well, I'll help you out. So he does have moments where I think he really wants to do his part and make a difference, but I think his survival kind of trumps everything at the end. So we'll see. Maybe we'll be surprised.
I think that's it for what's in episode 3. Was there anything else that stood out before we get into?
I don't think so.
Okay,
So,
cool.
yeah, I covered it.
So we're gonna do our predictions in a moment. We're gonna do our special segment.
Yes.
Which, go ahead, Rachel.
So we first for our segment, it is the truth of the historical truth in Man in the High Castle.
Yes.
So first, I want to talk about the Gulf of Tonkin incident. This was mentioned when Thomas was telling Juliana that he was going to potentially enlist with some of his friends and go into the war, go into the Marines. And then he referenced the Gulf of Tonkin. In reality, this did happen. Gulf of Tonkin incident was essentially what got America involved in Vietnam. So what he's referencing is a truthful thing. There were two Gulf of Tonkin incidents. They were both in '64. First one was on August 2nd, and there was a second one on August 4th. There is some speculation about what actually happened, but allegedly it was basically that we were attacked by North Vietnamese warships. So I'm just going to leave it there. The rest is up for discussion. The other thing I want to mention is Belle's poetry reading to the troops. As we mentioned, the poem's name is If We Must Die. It is by Claude McKay. Claude was a huge Harlem Renaissance writer. He was very, a huge, prominent figure in the literary movement, and he really pushed for racial equality. And essentially, Belle read the poem almost verbatim. There were some skipped things, but so that
It's TV, they gotta minimize.
Yeah. And also, I mean, she was reading to the troops, so it's like
what parts are important for that.
Exactly. So that's what I've got.
Oh, very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then, Belle, was there any specific news that stood out for this?
Just a couple bits of news about a couple of the actors. One is Jordan.
Oh, hold on.
Oh,
Sorry, we got our special music.
Such
Such
a
a
transition.
transition in our music. Sorry, I didn't give you enough time for there.
Hold on.
So, news.
There it is.
TV news.
Go ahead. Alrighty. All right. So, yes, Joel De La Fuente, who plays Inspector Kido, he is actually embarking on uncharted waters with his first solo show on stage.
Ooh,
and
yay.
which is exciting. It's a play called Hold These Truths. It's actually currently playing in its final stop on a North American tour at the Colch Historic Theater in Vancouver. And what's kind of cool is this is another World War II oriented play. Basically it's about the life of a U.S. Presidential Medal of Freedom honoree. His name is Gordon Hirabayashi. And it tells the story of one of three men who fought against the mass incarceration of Japanese Americans in the U.S. during World War II. And Joel has a quote that says it lends a hopeful note to our own troubled political times. So kind of cool to see him play another World War II-oriented role. And not only him, but Brendan Brown, who plays Robert Childan, also is playing a World War II role. He is in the movie called Midway that just came out. I don't know if you saw it.
Yes,
Okay.
it was amazing.
Did you recognize
I
him?
did. He was.
Okay.
Can I talk about
Oh,
it?
absolutely. I
So-
haven't seen it
So
yet.
excited.
He was the guy who plays Robert Childan. He was basically the encryptor of the message and the reason why we knew that the Japanese were going to be in Midway. And it's this huge thing where they don't know whether to trust him or not. He was in it. And then I am not familiar. I forget the actor's name. But the guy who plays, I'm going to look for that so I don't botch it. But there was somebody else, Line Tonk. He was also in Midway as well. He played one of the Americans fighting.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for predictions, though,
Okay, now prediction.
Here we go.
like I kind of mentioned earlier, I don't think that Kido is going to have a good resolution. I think that he's going to turn to the dark side. I think that he's going to end up being a character that we really don't like, and he's going to kind of move more toward that side. This is kind of random since we're talking about the Joe Blake character. I would still like to see him pop back up from one of the other dimensions.
Well, and also from a meta perspective, he's not like a ginormously famous actor that I'm like, they could bring him back. Like, he's great, but some of the other people, I'm like, they're probably not coming back.
No.
But I would love to see his character back, too, as another version or someone who knows what's going on, like, can travel as well or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Absolutely.
As we've seen, characters start circling each other and connecting. So, yeah. Belle, did you have any specific ones that stood out to your predictions?
Yeah, I think one person, I would say, if we're going to talk about Wyatt, I'm wondering, I feel like one of two things will happen with him. I feel like either I think he may die in some big resistance battle, or we just might not see him again. I'm not really sure if he's going to pop up anymore. So I feel like he's either going to go out kind of guns blazing, or this might be the end. And then maybe it's just going to focus on the BCR for the rest of this season. So yeah, that's one prediction that I have.
I think, Wyatt. I feel Wyatt's going to come back.
Okay.
I want to see more of the BCR because I feel we've only barely got introduced to them in season 4, and we don't know much about them or some of the other characters. Okay, this one's probably going out on a limb, but I think Thomas is going to want to go to fight and is going to die. Yeah. And our regular John is going to experience losing his son again. Oh, no. And that will make him go back to the Reich and try to change things.
I have another prediction that kind of goes along those lines. Okay. I think that Thomas might not die, but that Thomas, this other version of Thomas, who has lived in this other world, who knew his father as being a different way, Thomas just being Thomas is going to get John Smith from the world that we have been introduced to. I think that he's going to bring about the change of heart in John Smith.
Okay,
and I think
like
it's
that.
all going to come down to him, and that he's pretty much the one, like the golden person who can, fix his father.
Because he was a good kid before. He just, like Amy, has been brainwashed to think something horrible, and unfortunately isn't that critical thinking stage yet. The way Jennifer is at that age. Like, you literally, are not that critical thinker until you're a little bit older. I mean, though there are some kids that are very inquisitive and question it, but I think a lot of kids, okay, sure, you've told me this, I'm only going to go that thing. But Jennifer is like, wait, no. And also because she's seen what the other options are. Yeah. So I like where you're going with that. I think Thomas will help change John. And I think, because it's one of those, like, we all want to be so hopeful about, like, them changing. So I think he'll change it, which would change something else. But then also maybe John, in coming back to Helen, will be like, I'm sorry, let's join forces and make subtle or big change. I kind of was hoping for big ones, too.
Me too. I'm hoping that we get this huge change of heart from him. And I really feel like it makes sense because the Reich seems like they're going to be against John Smith now anyway.
Ooh,
so he might as well.
Dangerous territory.
Lots of warnings there.
And I think Kido's something's going to change with him, and because we've already seen him upset with the general lying to him, and he's like lying to his face. And now when he gets confirmation of that, I think that's when he'll maybe shift. I don't think he could necessarily go against the Empire, but maybe he might team up more with the princess and then want to go in a different direction to still be, I think he can't get rid of his loyalty to the Empire, but it might shift in how he expresses that.
And I do wonder, like, if he does think peace is the answer, because even though I think he would side more with the princess, I still think, I don't know, because even with Tagomi, I felt like he wasn't totally in his kind of philosophy and way of thinking about kind of approaching everything peacefully. So I do wonder if maybe he'll kind of side more with her, but still kind of keep some of his violent tendencies. I don't know. It'll be an interesting plot too.
We shall see. All right, so that does it for our episode 3 breakdown. Check out our episode 4, which will be coming very soon. And where can people find you online, Rachel?
I am Rachel Goodman. You can find me on Twitter at Rach Goodman.
All right, and I am Belle Blankenship. You can find me on Instagram at Bebenship.
And my name is Kari Lane. You can find me online at Kari D Lane. That's Karidlane. Thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Which is in a few minutes.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principal.